Today, we are going to review for tomorrow's quiz, understand some different things. We'll be challenged in some different ways, but again, tomorrow's quiz is not incredibly AP related yet. It's just the basics of limits so far, so hopefully we get the better understanding. These two questions would be an AP example of what we're doing. Okay, not exactly what we're going to see tomorrow, but this will be what we see on our next test. The line y equals 5 is a horizontal asymptote to the graph of which of the following functions? Okay, this is a pre-calculus question. Y equals 5 is a horizontal asymptote for which graph? That's pre-calculus. What would they be asking if they were asking this in calculus context? What is the same thing as finding a horizontal asymptote? The limit as x approaches infinity. So our question really is the limit as x approaches in infinity of y, I called it f of x. Which of those is going to be equal to 5? That's what we're trying to decide here. Show me with your fingers. 1 for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, 4 for D, 5 for E. What you get? Okay, when we talk about this on the AP exam, there's anytime we do a multiple choice question in here, it's never going to be multiple answers. It will only be one, just like the AP exam. I won't ever make it select all that apply. That's not what's happening. Okay, so let's go through it. On letter A, if we're finding the limit as x approaches infinity, if I plug infinity on top and bottom, sine of infinity, what does a sine graph look like? It's going to do this, and it's going to stay in between these curves forever and ever and ever. If I plug infinity on bottom, this one stays between -1 and 1. This one goes to infinity. Where's it going to be bigger? If it's bigger on bottom, what's the horizontal asymptote going to be? 0. That one's 0, so it's not that one. Letter B, it's the line y equals 5x, so it's a line that keeps going up and up and up. When is it going to stop? Never. It's 5 times infinity. It's going to be D and E. It's going towards infinity. Letter C, if I plug in infinity, it's 1 over infinity minus 5. That minus 5 doesn't really matter. 1 over infinity is getting really close to what? 0, so it's not C. Letter D, I'm plugging in infinity. 5 times infinity on top, and I get a negative infinity on bottom. They're both to the first power, so I really don't care about that. What is the horizontal asymptote on letter D going to be? -5, because I'm looking at leading coefficients. That one's a 5, and that one's a -1. So this one is -5, not what I wanted. Letter E, if I plug in, again, I'm looking at degrees. I don't care about any of that. Since these two are the same, I'm looking at leading coefficients. 20 divided by 4 would get me a horizontal asymptote at 5. That's why E is the correct answer. Questions on that one? Next one. Which of the following pairs of functions, f and g, is the limit as x approaches infinity of f over g going to be infinite? Okay. Notice here that they didn't say D and E. They said infinity here. That's fine. Okay. Don't be confused by that. We're trying to figure out which one's infinite or D and E. Same difference for us. Show me with your fingers. 1 for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, 4 for D, 5 for E. 3s and 4s, 3s and 4s, 3s and 4s. Yeah, about fairly even between 3s and 4s. So these are the two we think it could be. So let's look at the other ones and make sure it's not. Okay, f over g. So x squared plus 2x over x squared plus natural log of x. This 2x and this natural log of x aren't going to matter because they are smaller than x squared. What would the horizontal asymptote be here? If I have x squared over x squared, 1, because we'd look at leading coefficients. So for letter A, it's not that because the answer is 1. If I do B, it's 3x cubed over x to the 4th. I'm finding the limit as x approaches infinity. Where is it bigger, on top or bottom? If it's bigger on bottom, what's my horizontal asymptote going to be? 0. It's not B. Let's go to E. Natural log of 3 over x over natural log of 2x. My last class picked this one quite a bit. Is one significantly bigger than the other? Nah, it's really like leading coefficients almost. Kind of a weird one. I don't know exactly where it's going to be, but it's like leading coefficients. And that they're the same value, but one's got a 3, one's got a 2. It's not E. That one's a tough one. But they'll throw tough ones in there that you're not familiar with. Just reason your way through it. Letter C is 3 to the x over x cubed. And letter D is 3e to the x plus x cubed over 2e to the x plus x squared. As we look at this one, what is bigger, e to the x or x cubed? So I don't care about that. Same thing down here. What do you think the horizontal asymptote is going to be here? 3 over 2, because those two numbers are going to be exponentially huge, but they're the same number. So that one would be 3/2. So it's not D. It's going to be C. Let's look at this. X cubed over, 3 to the x over x cubed. Which one's bigger? The top is bigger on top. That's big, but that's bigger. This is bigger. Since that's bigger, I'm going to head towards infinity. It's D, N, E. It's not going to be limited. Kind of makes sense with how we make that decision. Super. Let's pull out an internet-capable device. Let's go to Kahoot. All right, we just did Kahoots. Kahoots were great. You can do them online for those that are at home. Now we're doing some whiteboards. Our first problem up here is the limit as x approaches infinity. If we want to know, when in doubt, when we're doing infinity limit, we just plug in infinity. 1 over infinity is a number that gets closer and closer to 0. If we do cosine of 0, that answer is 1. That's a pretty challenging one, but if you can work your way through that, you're going to be successful. Now we're on the second one. We're finding the limit as x approaches -1 with a little plus sign. Which equation am I plugging into if I'm doing -1 with a plus sign? This one. It doesn't even have -1 from the left, just because I made a mistake on the graph. But I'm plugging into this one, so it's just sub in. -1 plus 6 over -1 squared minus -1. On top I get 5. -1 squared is 1, minus a -1 would be +1 at 5/2. Which equation am I plugging in if I want to find the limit as x approaches, or as t approaches 2? Both of the last two. So 2 plus 6 over 4 minus 2. I'm just plugging into right there. That would give me 8 over 2. If I plug into this guy, it's 3 times 2 minus 2. 3 times 2 is 6 minus 2. Since they are both 4, 4 is equal to 4. Boom, we're good. That is my limit. It's 4. Questions with algebraic equations. Now let's get into the place where we struggle a little bit, but that's okay. That's why we're going to review them here. Okay, try that one right there. Find the limit as x approaches 0 of f of h of x. Don't overthink this first one. Okay, we're finding the limit as x approaches 0 of this guy. So we're going to start off by doing the inside. We're doing h of x. So we're finding the limit as x approaches 0 of h of x. As I approach 0 from both sides, what number am I getting closer and closer to? 0. How am I approaching it? From above. So the answer is 0, but since it's a limit question, I'm still going. It's 0 from above only, so it's got to be from just above. So then I'm going to do the limit as x approaches 0 from above of the outside function, which is f of x. Well, if I approach f of x from above, I don't care about that side. I'm just approaching from this side. It didn't matter here, but both of them are going to get me -1. Good on the first one. All right, let's make it a little bit harder. I added a third graph in the mix. See if you can find it now with that third graph. We're doing well here. We're doing G limit. It's a composition limit. So again, we start on the inside. So on the inside, we're doing this guy first, the limit as x approaches 0 of h of x. H of x, as I approach 0, I'm approaching 0 again, just like we did before, but we're approaching it from above. So then I'm doing the limit as x approaches 0 from above of the outside function, which is g of x. So 0 from above means 0 from the right. As I get closer and closer to 0 from the right, I'm getting closer and closer to 2. There's my answer there. Questions on that? Let's go to the next one. This one's a little bit tougher. This was on an AP test. Find the limit as x approaches 0 of f of 1 minus x squared. That's a function composition. If you think about the picture, you'll be better off. See if you can get it. Here we go. Looking at it. We're starting off with the inside function. So it's like we're starting off with the limit as x approaches 0 of the inside function, which is 1 minus x squared. Show me with your arms, what does x squared look like? But it's negative, so what's it really going to look like? And what's that 1 going to do? Move us up 1. So my graph is going to look like this. I shifted up 1. It is a parabola that's going downward like that. That's what this is. It's a downward facing parabola. Okay? I'm doing limit as x approaches 0. So as I get closer and closer to 0, what number am I getting closer and closer to? 1. And how am I approaching it? Just from below. So this is a limit as x approaches 1, but I'm only approaching it from below. If I had approached it from both sides, I got to find the regular limit. But since I'm just approaching it from below, it's 1 with a little negative sign. We look at that graph. We are doing, what are we doing? F of x. So this is a graph of f. F1 from the left, I'm getting closer and closer to 3 as I approach it from the left. Does that make sense what we're doing there? A little bit more challenging for sure. Don't be too discouraged if you struggle with that. Let's do it again. We're finding the limit as x approaches 3 of g of f of x. So we're starting off with the limit as x approaches 3 of f of x. I'm looking at f of x. As I get closer and closer to 3, what number am I getting closer and closer to? And how are you approaching it? From above, so it's negative 1 plus. So then I'm finding the limit as x approaches negative 1, a little plus sign of g of x. That means I'm only approaching it from the right. And if I'm only approaching it from the right, I'm getting closer and closer to 0. Let's do this same question. We just haven't done a whole lot like this, but let's say we had this same graph, but it looked like this. Now what would my answer be? The answer now would be D and E. Because if I found the limit as x approaches 3 of f of x, I am approaching negative 1. But how am I approaching it? From the left or from the right? Or from above or from below? Both. Since I'm approaching it from both sides, then I'm finding the limit as just x approaches negative 1. And if I'm finding the limit as x approaches negative 1, am I approaching the same number? No. That's why it would be D and E. All right, that one's a little bit different, but that's okay. Do the last one.